one of the things that I don't feel like I'm getting out of the Vega... Uh-oh. I'm gonna have to do this almost whole thing over again. Yep, that's me. Moments after finishing and sabotaging the install of the Vega Trem on my Vola. Now, I'm sharing this moment with you not as a knock against the Vega Trem, far from it. Instead, I want to use it as a teachable moment, if you will, to all of you. If you're like me and you've been doing this for a long time, you can still make mistakes, and this was a pretty big one. But I am happy to say that this story has a happy ending. Now, for those of you who have been watching consistently over the last year, you've no doubt seen the Vosti in action in various pedal demos. It's also become my main guitar for playing at church because it's just so dang versatile. But there was always one thing that I wanted to see if I could improve with it, and that was the whammy bar system. Now, stock, the Vosti came with a Gotoh 510, which in and of itself is a great bridge and does a very good job of being a serviceable whammy bar. However, I did find myself at some points wishing that it had a bit more range. I was wishing I could get more out of dive bombs and even being able to do like Jeff Beck and Michael Landau kind of things. And when I came across the Vega Trem, well, it's basically sold to you, or it's pitched as getting all the range of a Floyd Rose without having to install a locking nut. So with the whole concept of the Vega Trem being extreme range without a locking nut, I got really excited, and once I had this guitar in place, it was time to put it into the guitar. Let me take you to a few moments from the installation process of putting the Vega Trem into this guitar. So first and foremost, the thing that seems the most easy thing to do is to insert the Asian adapter posts into the bridge post holes. Next up, we can lay down our fulcrum point. And we're gonna need those 2 screws for the 2-point. Now, one thing you're gonna need to keep in mind is that the Vega Trem works off essentially a knife edge kind of idea. So on one side, there are 2 very thin slits that the Vega Trem is gonna eventually need to line up into. So you're gonna need to make sure that those are facing the proper direction. Now, one thing I found kind of silly when I was watching other Vega Trem install videos was that at this point, guys would take the springs and put them into the bridge assembly and then very awkwardly feed the trem in a way, excuse me, this is a whammy bar, it's not a tremolo, but they'd feed it in a very weird way. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Why not just drop the bridge in and put the springs on that way? Well, it has to do with the fact that there are these tiny Allen screws at the bottom of the bridge assembly. All you do is you slide in the springs that you're going to be using, which might take a little bit of effort. Actually, not that much effort. You just need to put the little Allen screw out a little farther. But then you can take your Allen key and you can go ahead and tighten the spring down, holding it in place. So it's not going to slip out of the trem, which I think is actually not a bad idea. There we go. See, this is what I mean. That kind of like weird, awkward feeding of the bridge into the cavity. It's like, ugh, why would we do that? So you're gonna have to finagle a little bit. Try not to bust up your guitar. That's not my favorite thing about the install, but it is there. And then we flip it over, and there are our springs, our bridge assembly. Now I have gone ahead and I have loosened the spring claw a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that up just a bit more. The bridge is supposed to sit flush, level with the body. So even without tuning to pitch, it's already pulling it forward. I gotta tell you, this whole thing feels like it's so much easier because I have locking tuners on this guitar. I'm gonna go ahead and place one of those extra low tension springs right in the middle. Now it's time to get down to making this thing play in tune, which actually just that extra low tension actually helped bring that back quite a bit. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tune it to pitch and then see where we're at, where the bridge angle is, and then we'll make adjustments however we see fit. So I've gone ahead and zoomed in a little bit because I want to show you more specifically what these saddles look like. You'll notice that we have our typical raise and lower of the height of the saddles in the front. We have these Allen screws in the back that will allow us to move the saddle backwards and forwards, but we also have these larger Allen screw holes, and these actually lock the saddle in place. So in order to do any of the setup work that we would want to do, we're going to need to loosen these guys up. Now, if I had to give you a rough estimate of how much time it took to put the Vega Trem into this guitar, I would go ahead and give you a solid 2 to 2.5 hours worth of time invested into it. It's actually an incredibly easy thing to do, and I only really looked at maybe 1 or 2 YouTube videos to make sure that I really knew what I was walking into before installing it onto my own guitar. One of those videos of which was from Vega Trem, so, you know, there's that. But of course, now we come back to the moment where it's all installed and I'm getting ready to play around with it for the very first time. And this is where things start to go slightly awry. So based on first observations, this is actually staying in tune pretty darn well. I'm very pleased with that because that's kind of the whole point of the Vega Trem, is it's supposed to give you that Floyd Rose tuning stability without having to, you know, have a locking nut and all this other crap on your guitar. The one thing that I am kind of wondering is about maybe experimenting with different tensions on the springs, because one of the things that I don't feel like I'm getting out of the Vega... Uh-oh. That is not good. I might have to, oh God. Yep. I'm gonna have to do this almost whole thing over again. That was, I cannot budge that. Just, yeah, that is, whoa. Yikes. And it's not that much either. When I look back on this moment with the benefit of hindsight, I definitely think I should have just left well enough alone and enjoyed the fact that the Vega Trem was in the guitar and started actually play testing it, not just, you know, stress testing it. After all, the best tests for any piece of gear that I get into the studio is generally using it in action, not trying to, you know, overly scientificify everything. But I'm willing to bet that you have a question about the tone of the Vega Trem. What does it do to the guitar's overall tone? When you look at the Vega Trem and the Gotoh side by side that came in this guitar, it's very clear that there's less material in the Vega Trem assembly as opposed to the Gotoh. Well, here's what I have done. I recorded 2 different sound samples, both with the Gotoh Trem and the Vega Trem, just running direct into my PreSonus Studio 192. I'm just using one of the built-in preamps because they're a very transparent and clean sounding mic preamp. What you're gonna hear first are some direct guitar recordings without any sort of plug-in processing other than some limiting to increase the overall level. Then I'm gonna play those same examples to you back to back with a frequency analyzer plugin from Waves so that you can get an idea visually of what each bridge's potential EQ curve could be. And also, for the heck of it, I've gone ahead and recorded a few other playing examples, and we'll go ahead and run those through some amp sim plugins. But now, to close this out, I just want to have some fun, showing you a few different sounds using the Vega Trem and how you can maybe get more out of it should you decide to get one and put it in your guitar. And that, my friends, is our little look at what the Vega Trem system is capable of. There's a lot to say about this experience, so I'll try to be brief. I really feel like installing the Vega Trem, using it, and then successively having to make small adjustments to it has taught me a lot about not only installation of guitar parts, but also upkeep of the instrument as well. I've learned so many different things about approaching intonation and tuning the guitar. I've also, refined my process, as it were, for heavy jobs when it comes to modifying guitars. It's little things, but it helped give me more confidence as a player when working on my own instrument. Now, although the big selling point of the Vega Trem is its ability to do the dive bomb thing, what I've really enjoyed about the Vega Trem is how smooth, subtle vibrato effects are with it. In fact, that's my favorite thing about it. One big problem I've always had with modern two-post whammy bars is that the vibrato effect feels like it comes on so quickly. I love vibratos like Bigsby's that are very smooth and they take the whole chord and just give it a nice little dip. The Vega Trem gets very, very close to that subtle Bigsby dip, where if you just want to add on a little bit of warble to a chord just to give it some vibe and a tune, it just does that job so stinking well. But of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say how fun it is to be able to just dive bomb a low E string with this guitar now, just because I can. I don't do it all the time, but when I do, I make sure I take full advantage of it. That was the good. Now let me just tell you about a few things that I didn't enjoy so much about my experience putting this in the guitar. Now, I've installed aftermarket whammy bars before, and I've even had to upkeep Floyd Roses on guitars that I've had here in the studio, but I still encountered problems getting this thing in and keeping it up. There are some great resources and videos out there that give you advice on how to get the most out of installing the Vega Trem, but they don't really get into the nitty-gritty details, not even some of the videos from Vega Trem themselves. One of the things that I often wonder is, should I tighten down the lock screws on the bridge for the saddles to not move back and forth all the way, or should I just tighten them down ever so slightly after adjusting intonation? This is one of those things that will affect the overall playability and intonation of the guitar, because the more you crank down those set screws, it actually will retune the pitch depending on how hard you screw down that saddle. It will make it a little bit sharper. And so that kind of process ends up making you feel like, well, I just made all these adjustments based off this, but now, like, has that changed? Is it worse? Is it better? I don't know. So I kind of always found myself in this balancing act of how exactly I should set it up. It's taken me a few tries, but I've got it to a point where I feel like the tuning is very consistent and the pitch of everything is just fine. The only other negative about the Vega Trem is really a cosmetic one, and it pretty much is only limited to the gold version of the Vega Trem. Now, there are two ways to do gold hardware. You can have the shiny, lustrous kind of gold hardware like are on the pickups here, or you can do the matte gold kind. And I certainly love the look of the matte gold. It's just very striking and very apparent that this is gold hardware. But that matte finish does come at a price, and that is the fact that over time, that finish is going to start to subtly wear away. Now, that's not necessarily a big deal for someone like me who's just going to play the heck out of this thing, but there are a few spots on the whammy bar itself that were rubbed away. But even with those cons, I have absolutely loved having a Vega Trem, playing it all the time and playing other guitars with Vega Trems in it as well. It's just a fantastic functioning piece of kit. It really makes me want to pick up this guitar more and play it more. It's that enjoyable. And I don't think I'm going to be putting the Gotoh back in anytime soon. At least I don't think. But who knows what could happen. We're guitar players. We change our minds all the time. If you've stuck through all the way to the end and enjoyed yourself, I thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. Videos like this come out almost every week, and the best way for you to make sure you never miss one is by signing up for my email list. Not only do all members of the email club get access to all my videos before they publicly go online on YouTube, they're also entered into exclusive club-only giveaways that happen almost every month. Just go to the link in the description box down below or go to seanpiercejohnson.com/email and sign up today. And another great way that you can support this channel is by using my affiliate links. You can find those in the description box as well. A lot of you have been using them lately, and I cannot thank you enough. You may think that affiliate commissions are small, and trust me, sometimes they can be, but they really do add up and help offset a lot of the costs for making these videos. Thank you once again for spending part of your day with me, and until we see each other again, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, wishing you great tone and happy stomping. Cheers, friends. God bless.